Hey you geeks! I rarely make it 6 books into a series, and until now, those were 7-book series. Lord of Chaos isn't even the middle of the Wheel of Time. Jordan still has me hooked, but we're not even halfway done yet. Maybe Jordan should have organized these books into 2 sets of 7, since I'm starting to feel the story get bogged down by its own size. At its core, the Wheel of Time remains about a man pissed that he's destined to save the world, which hates him.
Run, boy, run. This race is a prophecy. Run, boy, run. Break out from society.
Naturally, this involves going in a lot of circles. The Lord of Chaos has wonderful moments, but for me, it ranks between Eye of the World and The Great Hunt. Not bad, not at all, but it's not my favorite. Now for my spoilerific breakdown of characters, world building, magic system, and plot. Characters. This book's number of named characters is insane. In Rand's first 5 chapters, he meets with the Andorans, the Cairhienin, the Tyrants, and the Aiel, each group containing a dozen names. That's 30-some characters just for Rand's arc. It gives me some sympathy for the man since he too has to keep them straight, which I could not do.
Who are you?
Excuse me? I think the question is, who are you?
The deluge of names made a quarter of the book incomprehensible to me my first read through. Once I was familiar with who would be important in this book, the reread went much better. Rand. It's getting crowded in that head of his. 3 persons, including at least 1 madman. Rand tries to convince himself that he's the sane one, while Lews Therin is insane. But if you argue with yourself and lose, you have problems. Rand lost a few arguments with Lews Therin. Nothing major, but he certainly has problems. He also promises himself that he will stop running from responsibility. This is like the 4th book he's made that decision and backtracked from it. I don't count the Eye of the World or the Fires of Heaven. He spends most of the book passively skirting responsibility about the Ashaman, about Cairhien, and about the Sea Folk. He does command the Aiel and the Tyrants in a massive bluff against Samael, which goes nowhere. If it wasn't for his madness and lady troubles, Rand would be a very boring character. His lady troubles are quite interesting, though we don't get to see the conversation where he gets Aviendha to leave, unfortunately. Humorously, when Min arrives, Rand proves to be the only man alive immune to Domani methods of flirting.
I like the way you always tease.
Not out of virtue, but stupidity. Wow. Just wow. Matt. The charming rogue Jordan showed glimpses of in the Dragon Reborn has returned.
A redhead on my left arm, a brunette on my right.
Hopefully he's here to stay. Matt has achieved the most essential element to being the dashing adventurer. A snot-nosed kid he's honor-bound to protect. Sure, the band is cool with Vannon, Elysian, and Talmanis, but Matt is at his best when he's caring for Ulver. Of course, Matt's best is a rather unconventional style of parenting.
I've been watching you, and I think you're in serious need of some professional guidance.
That is still far better than him sulking in Rand's shadow. Matt also gets the best advice from Tom about helping Nynaeve and Elaine. Pity he's the only one around to hear it, since the entire Emmonsfield 5 needs to hear that speech. Hopefully it will continue to do wonders for his character, which, when not sulking, wasn't so bad to begin with. I can't believe Nynaeve took his threat seriously. Not a chapter goes by in this book without someone threatening to truss up someone else and take them where they do not want to go. Yet only the Black Aja are willing to actually do it. Does Nynaeve honestly fear Mat that badly? That speaks more about her than it does him. Perrin. My wolf Lopin and I are thrilled that Perrin has returned to the story. Certainly more so than Fael. Her sense of adventure has dried up. Pity. Perrin meeting the in-laws was everything I hoped it would be.
If any man ever comes near her, I'll pull off his head like you'd pull the cork out of an ink bottle.
Bashir has been a total BA since he swaggered in at the end of last book, and his wife even more so. Their testing of Fael and Perrin's relationship shows that it is strong, though the two have more of a sense of ownership of the other than mutual respect.
All I'm saying is, watch out. It just looks a bit more like owner and pet than boyfriend and girlfriend.
This immediately comes into play when Berelain decides to seduce Perrin. Perrin does not handle this well. Apparently, the idyllic two rivers never told stories about how to convince your wife you're not cheating. Though Fael and Berelain make matters only worse. Seriously, they decide to play tag while debating if the Dragon Reborn has been kidnapped. Even Perrin, the only one in this book capable of looking out for the common good, loses sight of it when Berelain tries to groom him. Perrin is this book's true hero, even though he doesn't really appear until the last third. I hope Rand has learned his lesson and keeps him close. Iguane. It's taken me some time to figure out why Iguane sets me on edge, above and beyond the other main characters. Sure, she's a hypocrite, but everyone in these books are hypocrites. But she's the only one being hypocritical while pursuing things she wants to do. Rand, Mat, Perrin, and even Nynaeve are all struggling to come to terms with the wheel obliging them to do what they don't want to do, while Egwene does what she wants.
I don't go to school and I kill people. Whatever, I do what I want.
In her better moments, this means being the perfect wise one, which means submitting to Ji-Eto and getting the snot beaten out of her. At her worst moments, it means using her unique magical abilities to have naughty dreams with Gawain Trakand, instead of coordinating Team Tarviran in their quest to prepare for Tarman Gaiden. She doesn't really see herself as part of Team Tarviran. If she did, she would have used Gawain's simping for her to try to convince him not to hate Rand. Not just concede the point because it would make the relationship uncomfortable. Certainly no more uncomfortable than Rand was in the box. Now that she's been promoted to Armorlin, her self-interested ways will keep her from becoming a complete puppet.
Put a foot on his back to get a better view, 'cause you're loyal to no one but you.
But she leads the Aes Sedai towards Tar Valon, not to serve the Dragon Reborn. Elaine and Nynaeve. These two are shoved together again, since most of their chapters were devoted to them suffering under Saladar Aes Sedai. Each has their own accomplishments, though Elaine rediscovering Tirangrials happens off-page. Also, Jordan balances assuring the reader that there is a reasonable explanation for her making them, while also not making any effort to explain it.
What is it?
I'm not saying, but I can tell you that it's fairly rare and very unstable.
Just like you.
Nynaeve, on the other hand, heals Logain. The man is one step closer to being glorious. I know he's hardly the hero type so far, but I can't help fangirling. Oh, and Nynaeve heals Swan and Lyanna, though not as well as she heals Logain. Jordan does a great job of explaining how magic feels, just enough to give us a sense of how it works. Despite all these miraculous feats, the girls are given extra chores. Seeing how the quote, good Aes Sedai treats these two made me cautious long before the embassy reached Camelin. Nynaeve also worked on overcoming her block, but this is a thread that seems to get dropped midway through the story. She and Elaine are raised to Aes Sedai on a technicality, and the catfighting ensues. Aiel humor. Jordan goes out of his way to explore how different cultures have different senses of humor, and that is probably the best thing about the first third of this book. The chicken joke.
Birds of a feather flop together.
Of course, the chicken joke wasn't actually about the chicken, but about how rudeness is the 8th deadly sin in polite societies like the Two Rivers. Something I can totally empathize with. Meanwhile, the Aiel in their harsher culture make rude jokes as a form of compliment, like the maidens making fart jokes about the Thunderwalkers.
You're a pig. It's a compliment.
Oh, thank you.
At least I think that was a fart joke. No matter how many similes I can make about the Aiel culture, there is a part of it I just don't get. But in a good way. Jordan's cultures are more than just the sums of their parts, which makes them more real. I love it. The White Tower. Despite their cool composure,
in the first place, I don't sweat, I perspire, and in the second place, I don't perspire.
The White Tower eats itself like the snake they revere. The Lord of Chaos highlights how the tower's latent dysfunction infected the world around it. Mirana, the Grey Sister, is probably the best example of this. She's supposed to be the negotiator or mediator. Mediation is supposed to be a form of dispute resolution where everyone walks away getting more or less what they want, not where the mediator browbeats everyone into submission. Another problem is Aes Sedai determine precedence in a magical, belt measuring contest. If the most powerful woman in the room says, let's elect a child Armorlin instead of my rival, then everyone has to follow her.
The melon! There goes our last female.
The Aes Sedai are known for seeking consensus and making sure everyone agrees. But Jordan shows that mere consensus is not enough to ensure a just or good outcome. However, for the first time in wetland history, there is another tower. The Black Tower. The Black Tower, with its military base feel, complete with shoddy family housing, shows the difference between Saidin and Saidar far better than any Aes Sedai waxing about fish and birds. The contemporary Aes Sedai are passive-aggressive milksops, no doubt a corruption of the submission required by Saidar. Meanwhile, at their best, the Ashaman are men of diverging extremes, fostering community while also wielding immense destructive power.
We are men of action. Lies do not become us.
At their worst, they just enjoy destroying things. Taim hedges on the worse end. He does seem to want to build a tower that lasts, which is more than Rand allows himself to want, but a brutal tower. A tower that is itself a battle. Is this a corruption of Saidin? I think Rand should have made Sora Grady second in command to Taim regarding personnel issues. She might have kept the men closer to Rand's original vision of the Ashaman as defenders of justice or whatever. The old tongue is difficult to translate. Now, under Taim's influence, Rand wants them to be weapons. Maybe don't take advice from a man you wish to kill. Though with Rand's madness, he sorta wants to kill everyone. Foretelling. Jordan gives us a load of prophecies, starting with Iguane. She would be better at interpreting her dreams if she'd think about anyone besides herself. She has enough information to understand her Perrin dream. She met Fael at the Stone of Tyr, and she knows that Berelain has the hots for him as well. Matt with his ravens is harder to know for certain. Apparently, the Daughter of the Nine Moons is a Shan-Chan title, and Ravens on the Shoulders is the mark of a Shan-Chan slave. I hope Matt doesn't get any tattoos while drunk in Ibu Dar, since the epilogue says the Shan-Chan are coming. But they've also been coming for 4 books.
Oh, Great Pumpkin, where are you?
Lastly, she sees Rand walking on the seals to the Pit of Doom. I hope this means we'll see more seals crack as Tarmangaiden approaches. The first 2 books seem to make it a regular thing, but they've slowed down. Will more get cracking? I do miss Moiraine telling me what prophecy Rand would fulfill this book. Without her, Jordan just tells us the appropriate line at the end. It was incredibly unlikely that any character would predict what would happen this book. The only ones who knew that the tower was broken were the Aes Sedai and Min. Min also has foretelling, but lacks knowledge of ancient prophecy. While the Aes Sedai know the prophecies, they cannot even contemplate kneeling to the Dragon Reborn until they were given the choice, or ultimatum. White Cloaks. I wish I liked reading about Pedro Nile as much as Jordan likes writing him. Nile has all these grand schemes which amount to basically nothing.
And I've gone nowhere. Nowhere!
Even if he hasn't noticed because of Mordeth's influence, I, the reader, certainly have. I also can only imagine that Morghese went to Amadisia because Talanvor was against it, which for me just threw out all of Jordan's prior work establishing that Morghese was a wise queen. Her outthinking of Forsaken was cool in the last book, but now seems a sign of pig-headedness, not actual wisdom. Her story ends midway with the White Cloaks conspiring to kill her.
Surprise, surprise.
This whole plot just doesn't feel like it needs to be played out on screen. The Bowl. Let me see if I've got this. The Forsaken are now in a competition to become the Nameless. I thought they liked their names. But Nameless means being second in command to the Dark One. To win at this competition, some of the Forsaken, I can't keep track of which, are looking for Angreal stashes from the Age of Legends. One of them might be in Ibu Dar.
Meanwhile, King Arthur and Sir Bedivere, not more than a swallow's flight away, had discovered something.
Elaine and Nynaeve start to question their life choices and decide to search Teleron Riyadh for what they need. They discover a bowl-shaped Tirangreal, which might restore the weather and is probably in the Angreal stash sought by the Forsaken. The book ends with them just starting this quest. Egwene ascending to the Armerlin seat is a mere threshold event on the greater plotline, which climaxes, if you can call it that, with Matt choosing an inn. Riveting, just riveting. The Well. While the other 2 plot lines lacked compelling resolution, Rand versus Aes Sedai made up for all of them. First, he gets mind-raped by Alana, who we met briefly in the 2 Rivers, while the Aes Sedai always focus on how her grief and loss of a warder makes what she did understandable. I don't buy that logic, but the logical corollary is that Rand is now stuck with a grief-stricken Aes Sedai.
See, I'm gonna get stuck now with that song, now it's in my head.
Throw in Lews Therin, and it must be very hard for Rand to think. Yet it's the Saladar Aes Sedai who absolutely fail at the game of houses. They listen to Varen. By the way, what was Varen doing? So far as she knows, Aiel revere the Aes Sedai, yet she didn't mention this when that Brown got stabbed by so-called Aiel. Instead, she flares their tempers and leads them to confront him head on when she knows that Rand is both skittish and powerful. I want the Wise Ones, or Sora Grady, to have strong words with the Saladar Aes Sedai about what it means to work with the Dragon Reborn.
Stand by your man.
The Tower Aes Sedai at least had a plan and stuck to it. True, their plan was malicious and fatally flawed, but they persevered. It was just their luck to have Bane and Chiad fighting the bleakness while on guard, because Sulin was discharging her tow. Because the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and the wheel wills a perfect storm. Then it all fell apart for the Black Aja because they underestimated treachery and men.
How about this one? My army, my throne.
About that.
First, as much as I would like to see Gawain die, the Black Aja was stupid for allowing the Shido to hunt the younglings while the younglings were still guarding the caravan. The Black Aja also failed to plan for Perrin. Perrin is a beast. He brings men, wolves, Aes Sedai, and Wise Ones to free Rand. Yet even with all this effort, Perrin would have still lost. Then the Ashaman arrived and forced the Aes Sedai to tie off the shield, allowing Rand. Taim's suggestion of abandoning Rand's armies was even more disgusting than the Ashaman's work. That was terrifying and awesome. Now Rand is saddled with a crazy man in his head, extreme trust issues, and an army of potentially mad, immensely powerful men who take orders from, if not evil, morally questionable leader. This is getting real interesting. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more. Your patronage is greatly appreciated.